Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. Today, I'm back up joined again by Nick and Matt.
Hey everybody.
Howdy, I'm second.
And today's matchup is Nick versus Matt. Matt has brought us set 2 Vegito, and Nick has brought out Son Gohan, the blue variant 3 energy, because Jimmy wasn't going to be here this past weekend, so Nick was like, I'm going to play it then. And so we did.
And sadly for me, I discovered that Nick's build is very different than Jimmy's build. And I was not so much playing Nick this game as I was playing Jimmy's build.
So before we get into the match, like always, there's buttons down below. There's links. Feel free to click them there for a reason. Since Nick's build is different, Nick, go into your build compared to Jimmy's.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me right now. I don't think there's too much of a difference. I think the biggest thing you'll see towards the end of the game is my SCR choice. I don't have money, and I wasn't lucky enough to pull Gohan, so I don't have that card. We got to be a little sneakier with our tech, so you'll see it here later on. But with 3Han, it's really just a pure aggro build. You just kind of swing for the fences as early as you can, and that it's using a lot of the main aggro blue cards, the double strike Vegetas. Let's see, what else do I have in there? The dual attack Piccolos, of course, the Gohan Piccolo dual attacker SR. So a lot of it is the same. It's just, I think it just comes down to tech.
Yeah, and also a lot of it will break down to play styles. Like, you and Jimmy don't play the same, so you always got to expect to know how the deck's going to function, and then be prepared for anything else after that.
In my case, when I had previously played Jimmy's build, I remember I went for game on turn 3 against Jimmy, and I comboed out my hand and got up to about 100k, and Jimmy just casually got to 110 and still had combo fodder beyond that. So that was kind of in my mind this entire game is, if I'm going to beat him, I'm going to have to just chip away slowly over time, or just have some obscene, combo power in excess of 120 or 130k. Because Jimmy always seemed more than capable of comboing out his hand, getting to 0 cards, activating battle, and drawing more cards.
And that's the thing about 3Han, is where if you can get them to burn that before your final attack, you're in a good place. But until that point, they are somewhat comfortable, especially now. So I think, Nick, when you initially built the build, I remember you had talked about, like, you put too many extra cards in your deck, and, like, you ran into a problem where you just couldn't get rid of cards.
Yeah, you want to have as little as close to 0 in your hand as possible, so you can activate main or battle and get the full effect of drawing 3. And there were a lot of times when funny enough, I was running 8 cards initially. It's a lot for this deck. I've trimmed it down to 4 extra cards, but I think that still might be a little too much. I didn't have as many brick issues as I did before, but with this, I got really lucky. As you can see, I played the Gohan Floodgate, which in pretty much in any game, it's very, very nice. Just forcing your opponent to have a board presence and then getting rid of that board at the same time in order to swing. Just a good floodgate in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, there were some games over the night where I was like, you just can't attack because you don't have anything less than 2 cost on the board. So they can have a big board established, but if they don't have the cost, then the board's just sitting there. Safe.
I will say that if I ever find myself playing Nick again in locals with this deck, I will be citing in multiple copies of Is That All You Got? That would have been very helpful this game, given how Nick plays and builds this deck.
Yeah, against one of the things about 3Han is that even though you can't go past 3 energy, like you see here, Nick is able to establish and maintain so many battle cards on the board. So having any form of, like, floodgate control is really beneficial, even if it's just like Protector of the People, where you will get a 5k boost every time he swings at you. Or
sorry, Bancroft.
You can side in Nimbus in your matchup, since you do play yellow energy or yellow cards as well.
Yeah, I don't. I play yellow for the sole purpose of Almighty Resistance.
Yeah.
And the deck number is very tight. I have screwed around mentally with siding in Nimbus. Or I mean, Nimbus is in my sideboard. I have screwed around mentally with main boarding Nimbus. And I have never actually done it, just because, you get it in hand and then you're just praying to, have something yellow you can then charge. Because
need to discard a yellow card too, I think.
Like, I think there may only be, not counting the Almighty Resistances, I think there may only be 5 or 6 yellow cards in the deck, and they're just yellow Gokus and Vegeta.
So we got Matt's impression. Nick, going against that 2 Vegito, what were you expecting?
I played against this build before, and in my other matchup I was playing. And the only thing that I really...
Were you playing, Nick, when we played before?
I'm pretty sure it was either Piccolo or Bardock's crew. Pretty sure it was Bardock's crew. But the only thing that I really have to worry about is Almighty Resistance in most cases. Just because getting countered essentially means you're losing the game in the right aspect. But in this build, since I'm running 2 counters in the form of the blocker negates, I'm not too worried about the card. I just want to make sure I have as much pressure as possible on my turn and force him down. Just make him make misplays and bad calls just to keep himself alive so I can go in for the kill.
I do think that's how I beat you when you were playing Bardock's crew. It was Almighty Resistance. That sounds right. Because it was one of those weird turn 3 wins where you're like, well, I can get up to 75,000. Let's just see what happens if I go for it.
But in a deck like this, where it's 95% gas and just a little bit of defense, don't really care too much about your opponent's swings. And the cool thing about Gohan is I'm a big fan of combo tricks, just doing stuff in the battle step. And this deck has that in spades. Like, it's got the Goku Black, as you can see. It's got the Gohan the Gohan rare, the blue one. So it's got a lot of interruption during your opponent's phase list, so you don't really care that the battle step happens.
The blue Gohan rare is just so obscene. Card is just amazing.
I feel like this has all happened very quickly. I don't think I've seen Matt put a battle card on the board really at all, except for the one, I think, Z battle card. And Nick it's 2 life.
Yeah, this is just a weird game. Like, I was wondering, like, without spoiling anything, thinking, like, how is this game going to feel for a viewer? Because it is a strange game. Like, nothing particularly exciting, I don't think. It just kind of played out in kind of a clunky manner.
Well, for one of them. I feel I was able to put pressure on pretty consistently throughout the whole game.
You played a great game. Like, I'm not saying like I played badly, but it was a strange game for me. You played phenomenally.
I understand where you're coming from. It's one of those scenarios where you're like, what do I really do? And I can't see your hand, so I'm not really sure what you have, but it's one of those scenarios where your opponent's just blasting you immediately. And you either react or you just shut down because there's not really much you can do. And especially in games like this where it's so early, where it's only your turn too, like, there's not really much you can do to respond, because the game has really been pushed to more of like a turn 4, 5, 6. And when you have an aggro deck like this that wants to win turn 2 and 3, it's hard for a slower deck to respond.
And really, the thing about this Vegito deck is, like, your perfect turn 2, if you time all of your Z energy and combos perfectly, on your turn 2, you can Z Awaken and just swing with a double strike lead. Which is nice, but the deck really isn't doing much battle card wise until turn 3 when you're going into the 8 drop. And even then on turn 3, you've got to conserve your energy. Especially against a deck like this where you have to have defensive abilities.
Yeah, here you can see, even though he did hit me with that all you got and cleared my field, I was able to just reestablish on and
Yeah, he's
keep
like,
it.
all right, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
Whatever.
pretty quickly too. I mean, pretty much you
'Cause I'm
expend 3 energy to resend 1.
the SCR in this deck, in my deck, is the Realm of the Gods Vegeta. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm not going to last till turn 4 to play that card. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that was the plan. Because the longer the game goes on, Gohan just starts to flounder, and if it loses gas, it's pretty much it. So I want to finish the game as quickly as possible, and I felt like I was comfortable enough to just leave it there. Just one energy open, I can get one tapped again once I start comboing, and with the Zeno on field, I can combo even more to get more energy back.
So I'm going to start walking the player or the viewers through this turn because this is where things get kind of comically interesting. I've got a couple options right now. I have the yellow energy and I have the stuff in hand to play Almighty Resistance. Ultimately, I choose not to because I want to go into the 5-drop that allows me to draw 2 cards. And that is, my big mistake because now when I bring out my 8-drop, that's going to cost me an energy and a Z energy to get to start the 8-drop process. And Almighty Resistance requires 2 energy. So my window, such as it was, would not have been to activate main the 4-drop, go into the 5, draw 2. That was a dramatic mistake in retrospect. What I should have done was just go into the 8-drop and just pray that I could combo him out with Almighty Resistance. So now we'll see that I'm on my way to the 8-drop. And the other interesting thing you will notice at the end of this turn is that I will have an open energy and that I will have a Senzu Bean in hand. Because one of the things I like to do with this deck is finish turn 3 with 1 open energy. With the 5-drop already established. Then on defense, play your Bean. Now you have 2 open energy. Then activate Battle on the 5-drop. Pay 2 energy. Play the green set 2 7-drop on top of the 5-drop. They immediately lose a battle card during the battle step. You draw 2. You rip one of their cards. So you will see this turn ending with me having 1 open energy, and then Nick will do something very, very cruel in the turn that follows.
Yeah, I was really happy that you tapped that energy
I
to
would
go down
say,
to 1.
looking at it, like Nick, if he would have left that other energy open and swung first with the leader, because the leader's double strike, I think, right?
It is,
So
yeah.
would you still negate it though, Nick? At least attempted to? You think?
It wouldn't have been worth it. I mean, I would have had another card from taking the life in hand, but it wouldn't have been worth it because he would have all.
Yeah.
Just
And then
having 2 open with a yellow is just.
Oh well, I
it's
would
just
not
the
have
biggest
Almighty
in the world.
I would
Yeah.
not have Almighty Resistance on the leader swing, and the reasoning behind that is the leader's 15, the 8-drop is 35. I don't have a ton of combo fodder, so if I am going to Almighty Resistance, I'm going to do it on the 8. Now I've lost my energy. He's tapped it down with his SCR, so my brilliant strategy of beating and going into my 7-drop from my deck has now failed. And all that's left to me is pain and despair.
yeah.
So the Bardock SCR, not a bad card.
No.
Not at all. Especially because, like he said, explained it perfectly. You get to tap an energy down. So if your opponent has the 1 open, thinking they're going to save themselves with it, you can just deny them of that resource, and then they're pretty much shit out of luck.
Yeah.
I'm very used to yellow tapping down battle cards. I know are there just a handful of yellow cards that tap an open energy?
Yeah. There's a few of them that will just say tap a card or switch a card to rest
Yeah.
mode. Doesn't specify what kind of card.
Yeah, and now at this point, I pretty much have free reign to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm out of luck at this point. There's my little blocker token for what it's worth. I've got like a super combo in hand. I've got 2 super combos in hand, and I've got a imposing presence. And you'd think, that's a lot. 2 super combos and imposing presence. that's a lot, but against what Nick has, not going to be enough.
Even though he was able to remove 10k from me, I still wanted to put that pressure on just to get the cards out of his hand so something will go through. As long as I get one damage, essentially as long as I get one damage, that's it.
Did I miss you restanding your energy for the Zeno super combo?
That's defensively.
Oh, it is defensive. That's right. Yeah, you're on offense. My bad.
Yeah, but I will get to restand one now.
Yeah, because of the Gohan's ability.
Yeah. And I do think I could have survived this turn if he had not tapped that energy, because between the Bean, the Almighty Resistance, it looks like I've drawn into yet another super combo. I would have had a shot. But at this point, I love how Nick plays this deck. It's not, what I anticipated. It's a very, very aggro build. And, when can you play the Gohan Beast? Is that turn 4, or can you play it on turn 3? I know you don't run it, Nick.
The Seeker?
Gohan Beast? It's the Seeker. You can run it as early as turn 2.
God,
I think all you have to do is tap 2 to play it.
Yeah, your deck. I mean, I know that deck. If you ever borrowed somebody's Beast as the SCR, I mean, it's already a really good deck, but then it just gets obscene.
Yeah, it's preferable. I do like Bardock just for the fact you can tap the energy down, but it's a going second SCR because your opponent has to have 3 energy. So that was stuck in my hand for about a turn until you got. So it's good, but the Gohan Beast is clearly better, but it's not bad.
And having the potential floodgate part of it where your opponent can only attack, I think, once, which is really great of it. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's matchup. Keep in mind, just button below. There's links in the description. And like always, thanks for tuning in.